Iranian officials have struck a defiant tone as indirect diplomatic contacts with the United States resumed after weeks of heightened tension, framing the talks as a tactical arena rather than a sign of trust, and warning that Tehran sees the Strait of Hormuz as a sovereign lever it can choose to use under its own laws. In remarks that mixed geopolitical messaging, domestic political positioning, and sharp personal attacks on the U.S. president, a senior Iranian lawmaker tied Iran's negotiating posture directly to what he described as realities on the ground, while insisting that Iran's participation does not reflect confidence in Washington's intentions. He said, ** recommendation is that if Americans want to avoid further damage to their reputation, they should not so closely tie themselves to the dirty and weak rope of the Zionist regime. Adams, the lawmaker, argued that Washington's alignment with Israel has carried reputational costs internationally, claiming that even countries traditionally close to the United States have hesitated to cooperate in recent military action because, in his telling, U.S. conduct violated fundamental principles and international norms. He presented this as a cautionary lesson rather than a mere critique, suggesting the United States risked isolating itself further if it continued to bind its policy to Israeli demands. At the same time, he tried to set expectations inside Iran. Lawmakers, he said, should not simply speculate about what might happen next. Instead, he argued, political institutions should judge events based on concrete outcomes, especially what any negotiations ultimately deliver. He said, ** we have now officially entered into a new phase of diplomatic negotiations. However, we must state unequivocally that we do not, under any circumstances, trust the Americans. In language that went beyond standard diplomatic skepticism, he singled out the current U.S. administration and the sitting president with unusually personal insults, portraying Washington as unreliable and emotionally unstable. He framed Iran's approach as one of presence without trust, showing up to talks, he said, to voice Iran's demands and to demonstrate resolve, not to concede confidence. He said, * the Americans are untrustworthy, especially the current administration, and particularly the delusional, narcissistic, and unbalanced president of America. We have absolutely no trust in them. Despite that rhetoric, he emphasized that Iran sees value in the negotiating table as a stage to press its case and reinforce legitimacy. He described negotiations as parallel to military readiness, two fronts that in his narrative can be pursued simultaneously. He said, ** however, our presence in these negotiations is to articulate the legitimate demands of the Iranian nation and to establish the justice of our cause on this very stage, and to declare that we are both powerfully advancing on the battlefield and also in the negotiation art. The most explosive portion of his remarks involved the speculative claim linking the U.S. president to the long-running Jeffrey Epstein scandal and suggesting, without presenting evidence, that Israel could be using damaging material to influence American decision-making. Epstein, a financier who died in jail in 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges, has remained at the center of persistent conspiracy theories and politically weaponized allegations in the United States and beyond. The Iranian lawmaker leaned into that discourse, portraying it as a possible explanation for U.S. policy choices. He said, "We believe it's highly probable the American president has gotten himself into the significant mess concerning Epstein," and added that the situation had snared him in the grip of what he repeatedly called the Zionist regime. He went further, suggesting the U.S. president might fear exposure of disgraceful and unethical documents, and that this fear could be driving American behavior. He described it as a trap set in the past that now leaves the U.S. leader with no other choice but to act this way. Those claims, presented as conjecture, were embedded in a broader argument that Washington should distance itself from Israel to protect its standing, and that Iran is prepared to keep pressure on the United States across multiple domains. He then returned to the theme of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most strategically important maritime choke points through which a substantial share of globally traded oil and liquefied natural gas passes. Any disruption there has immediate implications for energy markets and global shipping insurance costs. Iran has repeatedly signaled over the years that it could use leverage in the strait in response to sanctions or military pressure, though it has also often insisted it seeks stability and safe passage. In these remarks, the lawmaker insisted that the strait is not a bargaining chip Tehran will treat as negotiable in the way outsiders might expect. He framed it as an inherent national right and suggested Iran could seek compensation for security and maritime services it says it has provided. He said the issue of the Strait of Hormuz is not a matter we will ever play games with through negotiations, nor will we ever agree to close or open it based on any talks. Then, in a line that underscored Iran's sovereignty-based framing, he added, he said it unequivocally belongs to Islamic Iran. The claim reflects a political message rather than the legal reality under international maritime law, which recognizes navigational rights through international straits used for global transit. But Tehran's emphasis here was clear. It wants to present itself as the indispensable security provider in the waterway and to assert the right to regulate, charge for, or otherwise condition that role. The lawmaker argued that Iran has historically allowed vessels to pass with what he called patience and hospitality, and that it has often provided assistance when incidents occurred at sea. He then questioned why those services should be completely free of charge, suggesting Iran intends to exercise its rights within the legislative framework. That framing aligns with an internal political message as well, that Iran can translate geography into leverage and that the parliament has a role in codifying how that leverage might be used. He also pointed to what he described as a trinity of power that Iran displayed during a recent conflict period he referred to as a 40-day war. The comments appeared designed to project deterrence and unity, linking missile capability, popular mobilization, and leadership as mutually reinforcing pillars. He claimed this trinity would become even more potent in the future and suggested even the United States recognizes Iran's growing power. In the same breath, he referenced missile strength and popular events around the Strait of Hormuz as a source of unparalleled power, arguing that Iran is using that power more and more effectively over time. The remarks also alluded to a strike on a figure he called Martyr Hajisad, a statement that was not explained in detail in the comments provided, but which was delivered as part of a broader narrative of battlefield momentum. While the lawmaker was projecting confidence and confrontation, a separate set of remarks from Iran's diplomatic side offered a more procedural account of the talks themselves, still skeptical, still hardened by recent events, but framed in the language of negotiation mechanics and national interest. A senior Iranian diplomat described an unusually long round of indirect discussions facilitated by Pakistan, portraying them as continuous exchanges of messages over roughly a full day. Pakistan, which maintains relations with both Tehran and Washington and often seeks a stabilizing regional role, was credited with mediation and hospitality. The diplomat said the talks stretched across nearly 24 hours, describing them as among the longest sessions Iran has experienced in the past year. He said messages were exchanged without any interruption, continuing through the night, and that the agenda covered a broad range of issues, starting with Iran's own proposal and then addressing concerns raised by the other side. He described the outcome as mixed, progress on some items, but no resolution on several key disputes. He said, asterisk, the reality is on a number of different issues we have come to some understandings. However, regarding 2 or 3 crucial issues, the perspectives were quite divergent, and ultimately these discussions did not lead to any consensus or agreement. That assessment suggested that even if the channel is open, it remains constrained by major gaps, likely involving sanctions relief, nuclear-related commitments, regional security demands, and the sequencing of reciprocal statements. And EPS. The diplomat did not specify the 2 or 3 issues, but his description conveyed a familiar pattern: partial convergence on technical or procedural points, deadlock on core political questions. Asked whether diplomacy was ending or continuing, the diplomat stressed that negotiations are not a one-off event but an ongoing instrument of statecraft. Used in war and peace alike, he framed diplomacy as a duty tied to national interests rather than a sign of rapprochement. He said, asterisk, the work of diplomacy, you see, is never truly concluded. Asterisk, he then placed the talks in a wider timeline, noting they took place after a long gap and in the shadow of recent hostilities. He referred to 40-something days of what he called an imposed war, followed by a ceasefire, an environment he described as saturated with distrust, suspicion, and animosity. He accused the United States of military aggression against Iran in coordination with Israel, claiming this had happened twice within 9 months. That accusation, presented as context, was used to justify why no one should expect a comprehensive deal in a single sitting. In his account, the length of the session itself was notable, but not proof of imminent breakthrough. The issues, he said, were complex and the circumstances intricate. He added that new topics had entered the agenda this time, including the Strait of Hormuz and broader regional questions, files that carry their own conditions and requirements and are harder to resolve quickly. Still, he argued that Iran's diplomatic apparatus must continue pursuing national interests and using diverse tools to safeguard security and rights. In that context, he offered explicit thanks to Pakistan's civilian and military leadership for facilitating the talks and for what he described as strong efforts in recent weeks, and especially in the last few days. He emphasized confidence that contacts among Iran, Pakistan, and other regional partners would continue, and he our trade diplomacy as one component of a broader national posture, alongside governance, public support, and what he called defenders of the homeland. Taken together, the two strands of messaging, one from a hardline political voice and the other from a diplomatic negotiator, paint a picture of an Iranian strategy that seeks to keep channels open while hardening public expectations. The political message is designed to rally domestic audiences and warn foreign capitals. Iran claims it will not trust the United States, it will not accept negotiations as a substitute for deterrence, and it will treat the Strait of Hormuz as a space where Iranian power can be asserted, including through legislation and policy choices. The diplomatic message, meanwhile, signals that Iran is prepared to talk for long hours, to explore understandings on some points, and to keep the process alive, while also underscoring that the deepest disagreements remain unresolved and that the atmosphere is poisoned by wrecks. End to conflict and mutual accusations. The immediate question is whether the indirect channel can produce a framework that both sides can sell at home, or whether it will simply function as a pressure release valve while tensions persist across the region. For Iran, the balancing act is clear: negotiate without appearing to concede and project strength without closing the door to deals that could ease economic pressure.